honor to have you with us here today, Priyadarshini. And who better than you to talk about the culture and history of Madhya Pradesh with us today? So I think we all agree in this room today that involving the local communities is so important to offer a holistic experience to the tourists. But I do feel that the term luxury now differs in meaning to different people. So what does luxury mean to you?
So I think for me, and especially when you relate it to travel, I think it's really important for all of us to sort of take a step back. And when we think of travel and experiences, we think about going to places that are maybe slightly difficult to reach, being able to experience things that are not part of our daily lives, and meeting people that are different from us. India is a country that offers diversity beyond belief. If I go to the south of India, the people I meet, the languages they speak, the food they eat, the values they have are completely different from my friends up in Ladakh. And the beauty of that is what makes India one of the most fascinating countries to immerse yourself into. Now, when you talk about what luxury and luxury tourism is to someone like me, who travels a lot within India itself and abroad, I think for me it's going back to forests, it's going back to nature, it's getting a very holistic experience of the city or the town that I'm in, as far as the flavors of the food and conversations with people, for instance, even a taxi driver.
Yes.
So when I think of curating a luxury trip for maybe a friend of mine who's coming to Gwalior, it goes down to curating who would be the right guide to take that person around the city. So is the guide someone who's interested themselves in architecture or photography? If you're a slightly older person and maybe more religious bent of mind, then is there a guide who will sort of relate stories based on the Ramayana or the Mahabharata and relate them to MP and Gwalior for you, and you will find interest in that.
And I think the audience today, the tourists today, are looking for something different.
I think so.
You don't want to go for a run-of-the-mill five-star experience, right? The whole trend is shifting towards boutique properties.
Completely. Also because bigger properties with such great inventories, what ends up happening is those experiences are harder to curate for that many people. However, again, looking at the way we travel, our first stop is not a five-star hotel anymore.
Yeah, it's changed.
It's a property that's telling me stories, that's again introducing me to people and giving me a chance to experience world-class homemade cuisines. So it has to be a deep drop in all of those different spheres for anyone who's willing to pay the money to you. And I would say today it goes across budgets. So whether my budget is 1,000 rupees a night or 1 lakh a night, the experiences are similar. The kind of deep dive I want to take to that place is always going to be similar. It's just at what level I'm willing to go and what I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, and rightly, like you said, talking to a local taxi driver could be luxury to somebody.
It is, and sometimes the best stories of the place, are told to you by the panwala or by, there are times in Gwalior when I go for pani puri, and the stories I hear about my own husband sometimes from the guy, it's really interesting to me as well, and they'll say, "Aapko malum hai, ye hua tha," and I'm like, "Acha." So it tells you a little bit about the people, it tells you so much about the lives they're leading, and that's what you've come to do to smaller towns and different places.
For sure. So it's basically involving the local community in whatever way you can. And coming to that topic, you've done so much work with the Gwalior Palace, your brand Aranya. You're working with the local communities to spread their craft and culture. So could you shed some light on the work you are doing?
So we started Aranya about 3 years ago, kind of around the end of the pandemic, because one of the things we realized is there was some really interesting work happening in MP. Whether it was brands or whether it was designers doing furniture or art or, a lot of different mediums. And we were wondering how we would showcase them to the world. Because what we found a lot of the times is that when it came to art, craft, culture, and tourism, especially for palace properties and that kind of experience, the first idea people, including Indians, had was Rajasthan jayenge. And MP unfortunately lost out on a lot of that tourist, whether it was local domestic travel or international travelers, because everyone marketed the thought of Royal India being only related to one state in India. Now, if you come to MP, for instance, we are bordered by Gujarat, Maharashtra, UP, Chhattisgarh. Imagine the kind of culture that MP thrives on. The kinds of palaces that you have in MP belong to Rajput, Maratha, Saurashtra, and UP families that have, in the last 100 or 200 years, migrated to MP and now have their palaces in MP. So each one has different cuisine. So automatically, you don't just go and say lal mas, dal bati, because you won't get the same food in everyone's house. It's all different foods. So MP has the ability to showcase India in a very different way because of those various insights that you get of different states. So it's very important for us to keep it there.
Yes, and how do you keep it there? By communicating with the local people, and like you said, your initiative where you brought in somebody from Google Arts and Culture to train the guides.
So we do guide training programs through that. We do also crafter training programs. So for instance, how do you teach a crafter how to sell his craft in the right way without making the buyer feel like they're tourists and are getting cheated? So what is the right language they are speaking? What is the right language the guides are speaking? We even go down to certain stores and restaurants and say, okay, these are the kind of stories we'd like you to put out as well, because people will come, and once they come, we want all of MP to try and speak a similar language of welcoming and stories. So we're working really, really hard towards that. It's already been, I mean, the intention of doing the work has been over 20 years, but it's all been coming to light, I think, in the last 3 years since we've really created that platform. And for us to have brands that are born out of MP like Kimerica and Amrutam and Nakrali and Shivji, who's in Indore, who does some of the most amazing furniture. You know, it's such a great celebration of...
It's such a hub of craft and culture.
Completely, you know. Again, working in Ujjain for the last few years to only discover that MP had its own center of hand block printing, which it's had for the last 300 years. So, you know, every time I'm wearing a hand block printed sari or kurta, everyone's first reaction is, oh, Jaipur se laye. And, you know, for me to turn around and be like, no, this is an MP motif. It has nothing to do with Rajasthan.
In fact, your sari is a Chanderi sari.
My sari is
beautiful.
a Chanderi. Thank you. You know, so to try and bring back all our crafts back to MP, celebrate our different motifs and design skills, celebrate our food styles and cooking styles, celebrate the languages also that we speak in MP, because as you move further north and south, the accent completely changes.
Of course.
Bhopal has its own slang, Gwalior has its own slang, Jabalpur has its own slang, and they identify also through that. So how do you bring all those factors together and make it interesting for a traveler who wants to spend maybe 10 days in MP?
And make it more accessible. And coming to the whole topic of immersive storytelling today, it's all about packaging the right story and communicating it to a hungry audience, because the audience is there.
The audience is there, but the question is bringing in the right storytellers. Because we are all today completely immersed into these little stories that we see on social media, and how those stories are put out there and how they're packaged. And, you know, I mean, there's one person I follow, Maruf, who we've spoken about. And I mean, me, who's someone very fond of food and cooking, the way he makes the different dals of Lucknow I mean, to me, each one is a love story. You know, his interaction with the chefs, his interaction with fire, his interaction with the mixing of spices brings me completely to say, oh my God, I want to go to that gully and really experience what they're making. So how do we get these right people to come to MP?
And tell the story.
And tell those stories and become the storytellers for MP as well as the other states that they're doing it in or from. So there's a very, very deep involvement in creating a community that eventually becomes a Friends of MP. To bring stakeholders in, to bring travel and tourism companies in. There was a gentleman today that we were listening to a little while ago who said that, you know, Indians don't mind paying the money. We have people who are ready to pay 2 lakhs a night. How do I get them to MP? That would be
that's what we were discussing. Like,
that would be amazing for us to bring people like that to experience luxury that is so purely curated for the person who wants to experience either seeing a tiger or living in a palace, weaving a chanderi sari, weaving a carpet, going hand block printing, cooking, writing,
something for
painting,
everybody.
Wildlife.
Coming to wildlife, in fact, I think MP has some of the most lush forests, experiences like spotting flamingos, which people don't know about, or dolphins. Like, who thinks of dolphins in MP,
flamingos.
right?
We also have the black panther, the tiger, the leopard, of course the cheetah that's now come in, which is again superb and fantastic. However, apart from that, we have one of the most interesting migrations of dragonflies in Bandhavgarh, that they come from Africa once a year, every year in Bandhavgarh. And imagine having a dragonfly festival in the middle of that. I mean,
So why not?
Why not? That's the question that, you know, for me is always being asked. But the point is first to build the communities. The point is first to get our infrastructure in place. Our roads, our trains and flights have now come online. We're doing really well as far as that is concerned. Now we need to bring in the hotels. We need to bring in the properties that are willing to put in the money, willing to work with all the other families in MP and create those experiences.
Because I think that's what's missing, because my first thought is Ranthambore straight away when you come to a safari. Oh, that's quick. We have a long way to go.
Sorry,
but I think coming to the food, right? Like, I think the first thing when a tourist goes to a place is, mujhe apni garam chai chahiye, and that's how you kind of get a sense of the place, tasting the local food.
And also it gives you that association, because good tea you have all over India, you know, and it's something you can debate with a chai wala to a like Maharaja about a good cup of tea. So food is something that connects people very easily, you know.
And how do you add a touch of luxury to the food experiences you would offer?
I think the luxury is always the interaction between the cook and the person who's eating the food. That is the luxury, to be able to sit and watch and talk and understand how Indian food or food in India is prepared, served and eaten, because it's a luxury even as far as the utensils you use are concerned.
You mentioned to me that when the president visited you, you offered her a Noor Jahan mango, and I think that is luxury, right?
That to me is luxury, because I waited a whole year to get my pre-order of 2 mangoes.
And your husband laughed, but
and
I think
he thought it was quite funny,
yeah.
because he said, you know, I mean, we're not going to give the president of India a mango. And I said, well, when you look at the mango, you'll understand why she's getting it. So she loved it, of course. Luckily, she obviously enjoyed eating mangoes, and for her, she had her officers call us back and say, you know, give me a whole write-up on this, and how do I order one, and things like that. But the fact that there's so much to discover,
there's
even
so
for
much
me,
to discover, and people don't know about it.
And
so I
people
think
don't
it's
know
about
about
getting
it.
the right community together to collaborate and ask, now what can we do?
And what can we do together as a community in Madhya Pradesh?
Of course.
So, I mean, before we all end, I'd like to invite everyone here. Please do come and experience MP through our eyes and through the eyes of a lot of storytellers, a lot of amazing storytellers that MP already has. And we hope that we can show you a side of India that is quite fascinating and really, really interesting.
Like you said, Gwalior Rao, Khud Jaan Jao.
Khud Jaan Jao.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.